Welcome to the Eye of Power podcast. I'm your host, Tom Dardick. But this podcast is not about me. It's about you and your power. It's time to claim yours. Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the Eye of Power podcast. Today is the third installment of the series where we're actually taking a deeper look at the Eye of Power model itself. We've already covered the pain quadrant, which is the first quadrant over here, where we work on the capacity of courage, and we primarily get over our habits and the things that hold us back based on fear, based on not really willing to sacrifice one thing for another. That sort of thing for the pain quadrant. We talked last week about the perception quadrant here. That's our attitude about ourselves. So actions towards ourselves is the pain quadrant, and our attitude towards ourselves is the perception quadrant. Today, we're going to look at the people quadrant right here, which is our attitude towards other people. And we'll go through the four layers and give you an idea of the kinds of, again, four layers. One other aspect of the model, just to review, is we have the inner layer, the corrosions layer, right there, which is the forces that hold us in place. The quests layer, which are the questions and the things we can do to move forward. The traps layer, which are the things that trip us up along our path, a journey, and finally the capacities layer, which is the attributes, the traits, the virtues that we cultivate in order to maximize our agency and our power. So let's get into the people quadrant. Okay, the corrosion in the people quadrant is something we call condemnation. Now, sometimes the word condemnation is used interchangeably with judgment. So we say we judge or we condemn. But these two words are actually different. Judgment is something that is really not optional. If you have values, meaning that you prefer one thing over another, one type of characteristic, one behavior, one value, anything, any preference that you have, by definition, you'll have to judge because you'll have to compare this is better than that, which is better than this, which is better than that. There's nothing wrong with that. That's really a requirement of cognition and survival. So what's the difference? So we say don't judge or you're being very judgy. What do we mean by that? Well, it's really condemnation that is where we tend to get a little bit messed up. We get messed up because we have a knee-jerk reaction. In other words, we feel and act along ways that are sort of baked in. And condemnation is judging and also rejecting. So in other words, I'm saying that I'm judging and I'm pushing away, I'm omitting, I'm not including, I'm leaving out, I'm ignoring, I'm marginalizing, those sorts of things. So that's what condemnation is. And I'm not here to say that we should never condemn some things and some behaviors. And through those behaviors, if they are not really something that can be easily dealt with, then certain people do deserve to be condemned in the sense that they are put away. So the serial killer, the predator of children, or people weaker, or anybody who is sort of a habitual threat to others deserve to be condemned. In other words, removed from, put away, so that they can no longer cause the mischief and the harm. And in some cases, worse than that. Condemnation is not something we avoid totally. What we want to do is make sure we're not condemning in a knee-jerk manner. So we have to pay a little bit of attention to the ways that we unknowingly condemn. And that's what we work on in that particular section. Just to give you a preview there, one of the things is when we talk about prejudices or biases, make sure that we know what they are. Not that we ever completely get rid of them, but we don't want to just be limited by them. And we do that through self-examination as well as the help of others, because as we've also said many times in the Eye of Power, we cannot see our blind spots. So we do have to be open to sort of see these corrosions. We need to be working with at least one other person, if not more. And you might ask why? Why should I bother with that? Well, people are force multipliers. The more that we can accept, the wider swath of people that we don't knee-jerk condemn, the more people that we can become in alignment with. And we can have a richer life with a wider variety of viewpoints and resources to be able to draw from. Which brings up another dynamic when we're talking about the people quadrant, which is sort of a dynamic between acceptance, in other words, being open to literally everybody and everything, versus selectivity, which is the type of values and attributes that are going to complement our efforts, that are going to be in alignment with what we're trying to accomplish. This is always a dynamic that we have to navigate. When we're working through condemnation, we have to be judicious about how we actually do reject people and push them away. We don't want to get in traps of worthiness and deserving and things like that. We want to make sure that it's the examined rather than the knee-jerk reactions is what we want to make sure that we're clear on. Because negative feelings tend to be sticky. Once we form a condemnation, once we form a bad impression, you get one chance to get a first impression. And if you don't make a good first impression, you're in the hole and it takes a little bit to get out of. Well, look at it from the perspective of somebody who is forming a first impression, and we want to be judicious there as well. The path forward is the quest layer. And so the quest layer is always a high quality question that's going to lead us in a productive path, something that's going to get us stuck off of whatever we happen to be being held back by the corrosive force that we just discussed, in this case, condemnation. In the people quadrant, the quest is who with, what for, who for, what are the forces that align us, what are the rallying cries, what are the things that we value, what are the things that make us have something in common that we can share a mission. These are the aspects of the quest layer in the people quadrant. Now, the thing that we need to develop there is discernment. So we need to be able to not necessarily condemn, but discern. And that means tell the difference between. And so we need to know what matters and what doesn't matter. This is an aspect, this is just part of the maturation process. This is a lifetime effect. But when we look at it through this lens, we can often see how we have some blind spots, we have some prejudices or biases, we have just habits really that can limit us. So that's what we do with the quest layer in the people quadrant. Now, you can go along, we can work on these things, and then we fall into traps, right? So that's our third layer, the traps layer. In the people quadrant, the trap layer is comparison. And this is, again, a dynamic that is not optional. We have to compare, and that's how we feel good. That's how we think of something as good or bad. It's always compared to what. And so we just need to be, again, discerning and judicious about that comparison process. The traps there, of course, are feeling inferior or superior because of these comparisons, or being hard on ourselves because we're comparing ourselves in an unrealistic manner. So the most common way that transpires is we might be reluctant to volunteer or put ourselves on the line or go forward or take a chance because we think we should be better than we are at something, and we don't want to look bad or put through a performance that is not something that we'd be proud of. So we have to accept the fact that when you first do something, it's not going to be good. So if you're out there and let's just say you're, I don't know, throwing a javelin, to think that you're going to throw a javelin 100 yards, I don't know if anybody can, Maybe they can't. I don't know. I should pick something different because I don't know anything about Java. But let's just take race driving, right? So if you think you're going to go out and race like Danica Patrick or Petty or one of the great racers, no, those people worked really hard, obviously. Maybe you've driven 1,000,000 miles or 100,000 miles in your life, and that's a lot of driving. But compared to what race driving is, it's nothing. So these comparisons have to be appropriate, right? So you don't compare yourself to a seasoned pro. You don't compare when you're just starting. You don't compare yourself really to, let's just say it's a creative endeavor, like music, for instance. You have your voice, and it's a voice. No one else has your voice. It's unique to you. Using it when you first start, let's say singing, you probably won't be as good as the version of you that has sung for a while and has done the exercises and had professional guidance and have experience performing and learns the artistry of connecting to songs and has emotional courage to explore the meaning behind the lyrics and what that means specifically to you, and having that inform the stylistic choices you make. So there's these layers to everything, and the world is always way more complicated than meets the eye. So I'm saying all this because comparison is something that, it's compared to what, and there's always going to be more room to go. There's always going to be a bigger fish, they say in the Star Wars movie, right? And that's basically true with the very, very few minor exceptions. It's basically true that you can always compare yourself to another layer and something else that's going to you're going to measure short on. Likewise, it goes on the other side too. You can compare, and there's always going to be somebody worse. So the comparison game, you have to use that again judiciously and use it in a way that supports you and doesn't hold you in place. Admiration is excellent. Envy, not as much. We want to make sure we're not fueling feelings of inferiority or superiority. These really are not good for our attitude towards other people. The final layer of the people quadrant here is the capacity of consideration. And with consideration, what we really want is, it's like the other virtues. It's a muscle that we build up. We generally all do this, but we want to build and get better at it. The forces that are working against us are really our nature, in the sense that we naturally are wired to have an in versus an out, an us versus them, our tribe versus the threats of the outside world. Evolutionary speaking, that's what formed our perceptions. And even in cases where it's still not necessarily, doesn't necessarily apply, still our brains tend to work that way. So consideration is the capacity that allows us to get past those reactions to differences and allows us to benefit by putting on the lens of someone else to be able to see the world with the benefit of another person's viewpoint. The more that we can do that, the more our agency and our personal power grows, because we are getting past the limitations that we all have based on the fact that we only have one set of eyes, one set of ears, and one place in the world and in time. So that's a force multiplier, and consideration is the thing that allows us to appreciate the differences rather than feel like we're rejecting or feel like they are some sort of threat or feel like they're at least a pain, maybe a pain in the butt. And the path forward with considerations begins with humility, the fact that we are not complete. We are beings of limited perceptive powers, so that means that other people see things that we don't. And consideration goes along with the idea that, oh, what can I learn from them? What are they seeing that I'm not? In what ways is this person in front of me my teacher? And so that's a huge capacity to develop because it's one of the things that connects us. So that's the people quadrant, our attitude towards others. It's typified, or we at least expand our personal power when it's based on respect. In other words, we're valuing the fact that at the very minimum, we might not like anything about the person, but at the very minimum, they know things and see things that we don't, and they have a unique perspective and a unique basket of goodies, I call them, but it's really a set of attributes that is like a fingerprint. They and only they have that. And one of the things that we can, or success habits that will make the biggest difference for you in the world of work, is to be in the habit of looking for that uniqueness and recognizing it, and really allowing the person to feel like they've been seen by sharing what you see and valuing what you see. It's a basic human need to be seen and heard for the unique individual that we are. Even if sometimes we're the ones doing the hiding, we still need to be accepted for that genuine kind of person that we actually are at heart. And when you are the kind of person that gives that gift on a regular basis, your agency and your power increase, because people come to be in alignment with you. They come to root for you. They come to have what Stephen Covey called emotional bank account deposits. So in other words, you have an account with them that is building, 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 and you're valuable in their eyes because they're valuable in your eyes. And that's what respect really is all about. So that's the People Quadrant. If you have any questions or comments, I'd love to hear them. And next week, we will dive into quadrant number 4 and find our purpose, our actions towards others. Thanks so much. Appreciate you being with me today. This has been the Eye of Power podcast with Tom Dardick. I'd like to thank you for listening. I'd also like to thank my brother, Scott Dardick, for the music and his music production. If you'd like to reach me, simply email Tom at dardickcommunications.com.